talk about grotesque and freakiness in my presentation. First, let's look at the outline. I will start with the origin of the word grotesque, grotesque in literature, grotesque and carnivalism, grotesque and characters, and finally grotesque and fevers. During Renaissance, weird decorations from the time of Emperor Nero was found. These decorations were the combination of humans, animals, and vegetables. In addition, a word was found written on the wall, and it was grotto. When it got the Italian suffix for decoration, it became grotesco, and through the word's journey, the new term grotesque was invented. As you can see in the left picture, there are animals and humans, combined. These were the figures which were talked about. Now, let's look at the grotesque and literature. Portuela gives an excellent description about this. A written form of expression which described that which could not be controlled by reason was unnatural and arose in opposition to the classic imitation of beautiful nature and rationalism and optimism of enlightenment. In literature, grotesque images and expressions blurs the distinction between class, gender, or any kind of hierarchy. As you will see in Nights at the Circus, we will see this blur mostly with gender. The grotesque brings to mind the ugly, disfigured, or deformed. Grotesque represents unnatural beings and constantly challenge natural order of things. As you all know, humankind loves pattern, ordinary, and natural. So grotesque breaks these things and shows us the real truth that we hide from. Grotesque and carnivalism. Grotesque and carnivalism aren't really different terms. We see deformed figures and freakiness in both. However, carnivalism is more like an exaggerated truth. The mask and the voices of carnival resist, exaggerate, and destabilize the distinctions and boundaries that mark and maintain high culture and organized society. In the book, we see carnivalism and grotesque in cooperation. In the first part, where the setting is carnival, we are exposed to these constantly. Grotesque and characters are the next topic I will talk about. In our book, we see lots of grotesque characters. However, we won't be talking about fevers in this part. Lizzie is an old prostitute, and her appearance may be defined as grotesque to some. Also in Madame Shrek's brothel, we see grotesque characters such as the Sleeping Beauty and the little girl, the short one. In addition, in the circus, almost every character has a grotesque side. I told you these characters again because the explanation about grotesque and characters will make sense a lot. The grotesque image of the characters give them a freedom of not acting according to the social norms. We see this with fevers too. And let's go to fevers. Angela Cartel's choice of words for describing fevers is grotesque. She is often portrayed as she was going to pop off from her clothes and body. Also, she is constantly portrayed as big and gargantuan. In the book, the author criticized the Victorian perspective to women. In her time, Margaret Thatcher was leading the government, and during her time, there was a return to Victorian era. In Victorian era, the way the woman eats was a big deal. In the book, however, Fever takes no interest in politeness and sometimes eats just for pleasure. She gorged and stuffed herself, she spilled gravy on herself, and she sucked up peas from the knife. As you can see, she eats in a grotesque way. She is unlike any Victorian woman. She loves a lot, eats beastly, speaks her mind, and because she doesn't have any kind of family lineage, she is free from any ties of patriarchal norms. However, Fever's grotesque sides usually blur the feminine and masculine line. Fevers has a metallic voice, a gigantic body, and limbs which are usually associated with masculinity. In the part where she shakes the champagne until it bursts is a reference to ejaculation. Shook the bottle of champagne until it ejaculated afresh, as you can see from the quote. In addition, where she shakes the hose until the last drop falls is a reference to show how men urinate, usually standing. Shook out a last few drops in a disturbingly masculine fashion and laid it aside. Favor's room also is another evidence of masculinity. She takes no interest in being tidy or clean, and even though she is seen as a perfect and in a high place, she still drinks the smelly cockney beverage and plays with the hierarchical line with her grotesque. These are because Fevers cannot achieve maximum masculinity due to biological differences. Fevers is described as a combination of human and animal, masculine and feminine, high and low class, hence the grotesque image. However, Fevers uses her grotesque sides for her own benefit. For example, to charm men or take interest from the crowds, and it works perfectly. Well, in my opinion, she represents lots of things beautifully. I have to admit, at first, these grotesque images and the way Fevers acts bothered me too. But then I learned to look beyond them and saw the real character. Thank you for listening to my presentation.